All right. Hi, everybody. This is Nephew, SIG Automation Meeting for May 3rd. Okay, well, hi, everybody. So we're well underway here. We have the rest of this month to finish things up. We have target to have things done by the end of the month. And so the first thing we want to do is look at that status across all the different sub-projects in the SIG and see how we're doing. On the package management side, we haven't finished everything for the sprint, but we're making progress. I do think we're still on track. There's a few things that are lingering a little bit longer than I'd hoped. Hopefully folks can get to those in the next day or two, but I'm still not yet concerned. I think we're in pretty good shape and should have things at the end of this sprint, which is 1 week from yesterday, 1 week from early, I guess Monday is the last day of the sprint. So it's in just a few days. But what I do want to, well, I guess I'll leave that there. What I do want to bring up at the end is sort of where we are with respect to getting the integration testbed set up, but that's a SIG release thing. But Wim, how are things in package specialization going?
I think by the end of this week, I believe we have all the functions and all the specializers, but it's still to be merged, right? Okay. So we have, but we started to do actually integration tests by ourselves, okay. So within the team. So I set up yesterday a first porch environment with the interface function, even with the specializer controllers, where VLANs and IPs with a real backend for both. So it starts to work, right? So we are starting in integration testing, but within the specialization group itself. Mm-hmm. And our goal is by the end of this week to have them all. All of these functions so we are also trying to do a lot of stuff on libraries, making sure, because we have, like today, for example, we had one function that we use everywhere. So we made a library out of it. So we are trying to optimize the code in the meantime. So that takes a bit of time. I think the biggest issue that we have is basically, it's one of the topics I put on the agenda, is to how do we deal with this repo thing? Because that hinders us from building the functions, and we have GoSec problems when we check in due to that. But code-wise, we are okay. We are also starting to build some, let's say, integration tests that we are doing end-to-end within specialization. So we try to be, you could say, a mini test bed with all the functions that we test the whole pipeline. So we take the input that comes from you, and then we test all the way with everything till we have an output. So we are setting up some environments for that. So I think we are in a pretty good shape, if you ask me.
Okay, excellent. I guess to give a little more detail on the package management side, the two upstream things, package variant set changes and the config injection changes. Package variant sets in review. I've finished that. Yeah. The config injection I started on and expect to finish this week. And there's another piece that Simon's working on another mutation for the pipeline. We're going to talk about that. He ran into a roadblock, but I think we should be able to get that wrapped up pretty well too. So I think that all those things will happen this sprint. Then I do need to get them merged in a new release of Porch out, which I don't know that will happen before the end of the sprint, but we at least will have the implementations done. Steven's got a PR out for the NF topology that he's put out last night. I haven't looked at it yet, or this morning. I don't know when it was.
Yeah, I reviewed that. I reviewed that one.
Okay, and so I'll take a look at that. But and then the other packages we did get from Piotr got back to us and said that Orange has approved them putting those packages in. So he's out for a couple days, but when he's back, I think we'll get those we'll get those in. So I think those are the main pieces that will feed your, serve as those inputs for your team. So
Yeah.
I think we're in pretty good shape in that sense.
Yeah, I was going to review the package variant set and stuff like that. So we're trying to review some of the things. But yeah,
feel free to jump in, and I linked the PR from the Nephew issue.
Yeah. So it's good news from Orange then. Thanks, John.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, so then Tal, what's happening in the workload cluster side? I haven't heard much about that.
Yeah, so I think UPF is very close to complete. We are working on the Edge Watcher component as well. So Arvin and I are making progress on getting that up to date. The big thing is that we're aligned with the API repository now. That was kind of the big piece of work. And there are a few small minor issues, but I think we've dealt with them now. With UPF is pretty much complete, I would say, but SMF, honestly, I don't know too. The people working on it don't always come to the meetings. So, but I do know that there's progress being made. I'm just not up to date and aware of what the state is right now. So I will prod and push a little bit to make sure that that's done. I know that there's progress. They've just been meeting at their own hours and time zone issues, etc. So I think one more issue, which I really hope to get to this week, is building our container images. So I know with Docker Hub, we're not quite there yet. Lucy said it might take a few weeks even until we're approved as a true open source. But even without that, I don't think we're going to face any limitations with, I think we're fine.
We should just go ahead. If we hit the limits, we'll deal with that, but I don't think that's,
Yeah. So that's a piece that I want to do, but I think it's going to be very easy. I think generally we're okay, but yeah, time is ticking, and I do want to make sure that the SMF code is in. We've also created an issue for, our stretch goal of having UE ransom running and having everything work together. So as far as I know, the only tiny little blocker for this is that for UPF to connect properly, it needs the GTP module on Linux, the kernel modules. So that is something, a SIG3 related issue, just to make sure. So, we can stand up the components with all the configurations, right? It's all, the pods are up in Kubernetes, but there are, the additional things to make sure that everything really works end to end, right? So I think that kind of goes to SIG number 3. And, our stretch goal was really to make a call, right, with our 5G core. So I think that's doable. Yeah.
So along those lines, so I think that maybe in this release, that's a SIG3 thing, but I know there was a discussion about this on Slack, but just for visibility. So these kind of kernel modules, these low level or these infrastructure type of things, we know there's ecosystem projects that solve some of these problems with have KRM interfaces that solve some of these problems. So in R2, I think that's probably a good thing for that sub project to focus on figuring out how we want to, ideally we allow users to choose, but we do need a way that's Nephew to declare the requirements of the network.
Yeah, I have some ideas on that, some design documents. It's a huge topic, and it could be one of the themes for R2 infra management. It's non-trivial.
I'm sure. Awesome. Okay, so then I'll ask the broader folks on the call, do we see any roadblocks to, say, having like part of our goal here is to have a full end-to-end integration test up and running. It sounds like, there may be some custom, like if we don't have a release of ports yet, I might need to do a custom build. There may be, and so that we would pull from our container registry on those. So I can work around that. Are there other issues that might prevent us from I don't think it's going to happen by Monday, but say by mid next week or late next week, having a full end-to-end integration up and running.
Yeah, I want to ask you from the. So Wim, just to understand, the IP is still going to be, we're going to consume it as a image, right? The IP backend, IPAM, sorry.
That's what I did right now because
Okay.
either I need home.
No, that's okay.
Put it
That's
in.
okay. I just want to
At
understand.
the moment, I'm using it as so I call it a backend, and so
Got
that's
it.
what I did myself.
Whereas
The specializer,
okay, and the controllers is
specializer.
checked in. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The only thing what I did, what is missing for me there is, I think Sandeep is going to put a framework in place to have all the controllers run through the same operator, right?
Yeah.
I checked everything in except for the, let's call it the main.go. So I just have a setup that you can call, and then it will attach itself to the manager, to the controller manager. So I left it till that point. So I don't know what we are expecting there, but I also, this is also related to, if I put main.go there, we have the same GoSec problem. So it will never build. It will never get through GoSec at the moment, the way the repo is set up. So that's why I didn't do it for two reasons. One is to try to build or put it into that umbrella operator, and then second is the GoSec thing.
So Sandeep sent an update on that, and yeah, I think he intends to. He doesn't have it yet, but he's intending to get it ASAP. So yeah,
He's on the call as well. Right?
Oh, he's here. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I'll have some PR by this week. So I'm in work. I have started putting things together, but yeah, as I said, like no tangible status.
Right.
Because one thing as well, Sandeep, one thing that I will need is to have, I need somewhere an environment variable to reach out to the backend, because the specializer in a separate controller than the backend. So I need to somehow find the service and stuff like that.
So the specializer needs a configuration effectively. So that could be done with environment variables, or ideally maybe with a config map or even a special CR for that. So when the user is setting up Nefio, they would say, oh, here's where my IPAM backend is.
Yes.
But so that's a good, so to start, Sandeep, like what I'm expecting to see is like in the Nefio repository, a Nefio controller manager directory, basically that builds the, you know, the universal binary, the main binary, and then we'll have to eventually like add the ability to configure it and things like that. But so okay, awesome. Then hopefully this week that'll happen. So let's move on then.
So
to the
you asked the original question, right? About the integration testing, John. So I think we are making very, very good progress. Your goal is to reach that at the end of next week. So I wanted to make sure from the test bed perspective where we are, whether I'm pretty sure we're in a good state last time we checked. I just want to make sure that with all the new requirements coming in, whereas we wanted to have the kernel GTP module in the kernel, etc. Are we making progress there as well, so that we are ready to be integration test bed is ready by the time every component is ready by the next week. Do we have Victor or Vish or anybody in the call?
Yeah, I think that this is quite well. My understanding, like Rados has submitted like a few patches to set up the test bed. So for now, it is consuming the source code, which is in the open source. The one summit source code. So this is at the current state. I think eventually we're going to improve it, like not depending too much on that, and try to migrate to a better option. But yeah, I guess Rado has been doing a great job in that sense.
Cool.
The kernel module, I know you have assigned an issue there. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it should be easily accommodatable as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but one of the things, I know Rado is not here since his patch is integrated for the integration. But are there any integration test cases or the end-to-end test cases written at this point of time that can be invoked? I mean, by the SIG2 automation team that we can start. Okay.
I don't have any, but what we'll need, yeah, is a set of test repos and then test, packages that get deployed against that, and we flow all the way through end to end, but we don't have that yet.
I think the minimum what we have is what we have from the One Summit, wherein we can deploy those packages. We can actually go query them to see which of the packages are in a proposed state, and stuff like that, just to make sure that it's more like a sanity check, that we're able to pull in, the clusters are running, and the packages that we expect to be in a draft state are in draft state, and the packages that we probably can issue a command to make it propose it and publish can be in that state. That's probably the minimum that I can think of at this time.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm wondering, do we have a framework for creating those EDE tests? So like somewhere I can just write a test and then I know it gets executed in the EDE. I mean, I know we're not quite there yet, but is that the goal? Like, what is the plan around? They're setting up. So at any given, let's suppose we have pre-submit tests. So we run our unit tests, and we've got a handful of those that run. We'll probably also have periodic tests that run a full end-to-end suite, or maybe even an end-to-end in our pre-submits. And what that would do is, pull down some test package and execute a bunch of those tests exactly like you're saying, Vish. They would go and deploy a package and see that the package, that gets deployed creates appropriate downstream packages for each target, and then those get specialized appropriately, and then they're in a proposed state and they get published. And when they get published, the eventually, right, the end-to-end test would show a call going all the way through. Like, we need a EDE test repo where we can add those kind of periodic tests that can be run against any, we spin up a test bed, run those EDE tests and see the results. So my understanding was that was something SIG3 was going to work on, is that end-to-end test framework. And then SIG2 would be responsible potentially for building a number of those end-to-end tests, or at least some of them are specific ones. Is that a common understanding with the folks here from SIG3 that are representing?
Well, looks like in that particular case, then probably there's a gap in understanding, right? In the sense, not a gap in understanding. I mean, what you have raised is a gap, basically like, hey, how do I write my end-to-end tests? Even though I am in SIG2, what is the framework? That seems to be like the basis of the question.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, let myself, Victor, and some other SIG3 folks talk about this and get back to you on that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Then I'm, I'd love to put those end-to-end tests together. So
yeah, because
now,
I want to make sure we can do what we can do between now and the next 3 weeks. Even though ideally in our minds we can boil the ocean, we want to be able to take those incremental steps to get there with whatever we can.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So,
just let me know what but I guess I'm hoping we said by the end of next week. Actually, the TSC meeting's on Thursday, the 11th. I'm wondering if we can, not all the stuff I just said, but if we can have an environment stood up manually maybe, or something where we can run through a full test. That would be awesome. If we could get that done for the TSC on Thursday, which would show good progress.
Great goal to have. Yep.
yeah. And to your question, John, yeah, absolutely. I think we discussed that briefly, having that end-to-end repo, and also just like the way you said, maybe running it with the merge PRs or something like that every time, right? But I don't think we have gotten to that point, obviously. That is, so your expectation is that SIG3 will set up a repo and the base framework to run the test, and then probably the test can get added. And when we say the base framework, obviously we need to make a decision on the integration testing framework, all those kinds of stuff.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's yeah, that I think I remember discussing this. Yeah.
Okay.
So John and Bala, which issue are you actually referring to in this context that you're looking to see if the progress is being made? The reason is there something that is being used to track this, what John is thinking and what Bala is thinking?
No. What I'm saying is there is
No. I'm actually making sure that there is an issue that is being tracked.
Yeah.
Okay. I will. There are so many issues. I had to go back and check.
Okay. Yeah.
There's one already. If not, I will create one wish.
Yeah. So that you and Wim, John are able to say, oh, this is the issue I'm talking about. Hey, Victor and hey, Vish, or the release 3 what are you guys thinking?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Okay. If I know we have created several issues for test in front, test beds. So let me see if there is anything created for this. If not, I'll create one.
Yeah. Thank you, Bala. I mean, you've been doing great on that. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
What might be important, I think, and maybe I'm just raising this, is that the next week is going to be important because there's lots of moving parts, and maybe we have to divide and conquer a little bit on who is doing what to get this up and running, because I believe we need support from various people, right? So would it not make sense to basically detail a bunch of things that we actually have to do? I think some of them are in the issues, but I believe there are pieces that fall in between the cracks.
Yeah.
And we better, the sooner, and probably will never be exact or complete, but the more complete we are, the better it will be for all of us, because then at least we don't feel, or we try to avoid having unexpected things. And so, for example, for me, I mean, if I look to the current thing, what I did personally yesterday, I create my own package to deploy the whole freaking thing, because that's the starting point of everything. That should be somewhere available for everyone, right? I think there's an issue tracking that. So you see that we have to go through a certain stages, and some of these things can be in parallel, for example, but that needs to happen in order to accomplish this, right? And I think it might be good to, or I don't know how to do it, but to visualize that and ensure that we have the right people on the right job, and ensure that we are acting, because they are, if some of these things don't work, we create dependencies for other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would say we just need to be very communicative, especially so.
Sure.
So use Slack immediately if you have any kind of issue or blocker, and that we can help each other. But the issue you raised, I'm actually not quite sure how to solve it yet, because we do want to start publishing artifacts to our container images to our Docker. And I'm not sure what to do with the secrets yet, where to store them in a way that this is a SIG issue that needs to be resolved. But I, for example, don't have credentials for that. So I know I can ask John or you to get our credentials to log into our Docker Hub account. But
you should actually have, I think you're on but anyway, we can talk about that.
I mean, it might be in an email somewhere and I missed it. But yeah, I'm sure I can get it, but that's obviously not how we want to work. We want exactly that to make sure that, anyway, this will be a SIG 3 issue. And we can unblock ourselves now by just really sharing the credentials freely amongst ourselves, and then in the future changing them and making sure that it's stored somewhere. But this is kind of the point that I wanted to try to make. Let's all help each other and smooth things out and use communication to unblock. So,
but also, sorry. No, go ahead. I mean, the only thing what I was going to say is that by making it visible, we also don't duplicate the effort.
That's what I'm
exactly.
saying.
Exactly.
You don't want everybody trying to do the same thing and then talking to each other about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
that already happened to me once, but yeah. So it's a bit of a challenge because we have different time zones, but the other challenge, we have a lot of issues opened, and my email list, I get about 20 different updates per day from all our repositories, every commit made. It's sometimes very hard to keep track of stuff. Most people do not update their GitHub issues with their progress. And that's okay. This have been our work style. Some are everybody has a slightly different style, right? So for some people, I have to go directly to them to find out what's going on. Others update their GitHub issue, or they have very detailed commit messages. So I think the point is we're not going to change or create some sort of culture instantly, especially not by next week. So just the call right now, let's just use Slack, right? You know, everybody's using Slack. So let the people know who would be affected by what you're working on. Exactly as you said, Wim, let them know what you're working on, and let's just make sure that we're not really stepping on each other's toes. And yeah,
So I
the
think
direct approach, I think, is best right now.
good point. And also we need to be using Slack. And for some of the issues, at least in the specialization and the packaging meeting, I think we spent some time actually going through issues and updating them. So maybe it's not happening throughout, but I felt that was good. Maybe that seems to work. But then to your point, yes, we should also be using Slack to communicate, and not in subgroups or anything, at least in those public groups, basically.
Yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
something I want to say is I occasionally get direct messages from folks, and that's fine for like things that require private, you know, conversations. But for the most part, if you're just asking general questions, do it in the main channel, because then other people can see it, and then they'll learn too. So that's just a sort of an aside that Fish, like you just you saying, doing it in the main channel, I think is you're right. And then the other thing I want to say is that we do need to use the issues to track who's doing what work, because that's how we avoid the duplicates. So if you run into something, you know, at least on the, you know, look at the sprint board and see if there's already an issue tracking that, and then reach out to whoever's assigned on Slack or something, or in the issue. But you know, definitely communicate more, but there does need to be sort of a repository of assignments, which is what those issues are.
Yeah, the source of truth should be the issue that is open. If it is not there, it'll be great to open an issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For the release, for the release health. Yeah.
Yeah, please, please open it, or please let me know. Either way works. Yeah, I agree with your wish. It's better to keep everything visible. I know I had to open a few issues regarding documentation and everything. That I will do it in this week. That is in my task. So according to me, there are two main blockers or of that sort. John, we need to discuss two things. One is one thing was to do with this image push, like Tal brought up, and Wim also brought up. I was gonna work with Rado on this one this week. So generally, let's discuss how should we go about that one for now. That's the one thing. The second thing is the Go workspaces versus Go modules. So let's actually have a conclusion to that, so that we can follow it for this sprint, and then take it from there. Whatever we need to do for R2. So I think probably those two are kind of blockers. I would say kind of not blocker in the sense, you know, kind of hindering progress.
Okay, that sounds great. And I think one of those is on our agenda now. So let's just have Tal. He's got his hand up, and then we can move on to that if those are the two main things.
Yeah, thanks. So let's also talk a little bit about documentation. Our deliverables basically for the TSC to approve release R1 would be presenting on our work, but the important deliverable is to have it documented. And I know we have a few different issues, but I wonder if it's worth having some sort of documentation czar in the group, somebody who could make sure stylistically, location, that everything is kind of in one place and easy to access from a user's perspective. I know, Bala, you've been tracking a lot of stuff. I don't know if it should be you, because that's a lot of stuff on you, but just to make sure that the closer we're getting to it, that our documentation is well organized and as complete as possible.
I think that, and we can go back and check the charter and make sure, but I think that SIG3 building the documentation framework, not the writing the documentation, but building the framework of like how we'll deliver documentation, and like as developers where we need to write it and that sort of thing, I believe is a SIG3 charter item. Well, you should double check that. But yes, that's a huge and important area as well.
Yeah. So I was going to open a few tasks there, like I said just a few minutes ago. But John, I think the docs repository that you created, I think that's the place where that was my understanding, where we put the user-facing documentation, maybe of the install guide, the user guide, of those sorts. Is that and essentially I was thinking maybe a couple of a few MD files, whatever those are. That was my mental model of how we're going to present the user-facing documentation for R1.
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Based on that, probably I'll create a few issues and we can take it from there. I can track, I can coordinate, as well as I can help write some of the documentation at all. But obviously the SMEs, we need help from SMEs so that we are consistent in the terminologies.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I think we can move on, unless there's other things to discuss here, to our next agenda item, which is, I believe, this GoSec issue. Let me see. I have it open here. I know I'm not displaying it. Yeah, product status, and then how to deal with the GoSec failures, and then I put on build pipeline, which Tal also brought up. So let's start with the GoSec piece.
Yeah, so I'll take it. So yeah, so the issue that we have is that in the Nephew repo, we have a GoMod in the root directory, right? And so our functions right now, but it will also be with the controller, the specializer controller that I have. We have a GoMod file in, let's say, a deeper part into the repo. And in that situation, GoSec doesn't like it and reports issues. Okay, so that's the issue that we have. So I see or there is basically three options that I see. One is
so Wim, before that, can you please explain what is the issue with GoSec? What error it reports?
So GoSec basically cannot reference certain packages. So basically, it complains that it cannot find certain packages that are referenced by the secondary GoMod file, because he actually only trusts the main GoMod file.
So what
there is an issue
at this repo, and the only place there's right now actual code is in here. So to me, I don't understand why we even need a GoMod file here, and why it wouldn't just
correct.
Yeah.
Now I did a quick test yesterday to move it towards lib, right? And the problem with that is then all the makefile and the way prow is set up has to change if you do that, it seems. But I think that's the best solution. By the way, that's my preferred way to go, is to move that GoMod file into the lib wherever we need it. And that would solve it. And that would be, in my view, the right solution for this problem. But that means that I think what I did yesterday is I moved that just for my own test with the PR. I checked it in, and then all the proud jobs, all the tests, they all failed.
Right. So prow is not aware of, or we have to configure prow or set it up differently to be aware of each separate Go module in the repository.
And it's also the make files, also the whole environment around the way prow is set up at the moment is not liking that either. But I think it's fixable. It's easily to fix, in my view. But we need Rado probably. I mean, it's.
So why don't we do this? Here's my suggestion: is that the first thing is to unblock people from getting things in, and so we just disable GoSec. And then we have a separate issue that says to reorganize, and we disable GoSec and we move the Go mod files. And then we have a separate issue that says, I guess that's not necessary if we do that, but we just have a separate issue to deal with this so that people can move forward and make their submit their PRs, and we're not blocking work. And then it's a separate, like we can, as a best practice, we can move the Go mod file already, or set up workspaces, and/or set up workspaces, but we just disable whatever fails.
And the other thing is to disable GoSec selectively, right? Because it's only for the things that build these functions. But also this needs probably Rado to help us do that, I guess, or I don't know who else knows it. Either we disable GoSec as a whole, or we do it selectively only for the things that on which it fails.
So when my understanding from Isti that when he used the workspaces, he did not have these issues. Is that not the right understanding?
That's correct, but if you look to Go Workspaces, it is not meant for it. It's basically Go Workspace. If you read the documentation, I did a lot of detailed reading this morning again. And what you see is that actually it is built for you as a person to set up, let's say, a variation of an environment. It's not meant for this type of space. We can make it work with Go Workspaces, but I believe we are setting ourselves up for another problem.
So where I'm coming from is, see, today's Wednesday, so we have one more sprint, technically in the last sprint, to do testing and documentation and everything. So since we have one more sprint, can we use it for R1 and immediately after R1, like John suggested, create a task and immediately after R1 redo like the way you suggested, Wim? Because then it's redo the pro job and redo the make files and remove the Go mod file and set it up the way we want.
There's an easier solution right now is to basically not use GoSec, right? In that case, you don't have to change anything other than that. That's one option.
What is GoSec? It's like a security validation or something, or a linter or something, or
vulnerabilities. It actually checks for vulnerabilities if there's any in the code. That's something that I'd introduced from my past experiences. So are we, one other thing that it seems like, looking at the issue that was posted by ST, are we not following any standard Go project layouts? And it seems like GoSec has been used for a while now. Like, I started using GoSec something back in 2018. So it's been out there. It seems to detect some of this. But there is also some standard packaging, the way you structure your Go projects. There are certain structures where certain things have to be placed. It's been a while for me. Seems like there's a standard layout. If you follow those things, we shouldn't be reaching.
I think that's the suggestion for the changes.
Okay.
It just requires quite a few changes right now in order to make that happen.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
So the easy, I see.
So you're saying
disabling GoSec is probably the fastest way to fix it. Go Workspace, I think because I don't believe we have many people using it, and I have the feeling that we might introduce it and then we'll end up with other issues later on that we are not experienced upon. That's my fear, Bala, with Workspaces.
Got it. Yeah, thanks, Phil.
I don't know. So that's why I think it's better either to disable GoSec for now and move on, and then we solve it with the rearrangement of stuff. I think that's my research is the best way forward.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would vote for too. Like, even just in the Nephew repository, we have the other repositories where GoSec can still be running. It's just this one repository where it's an issue, right? So we would just do that temporarily, create an issue that says reorganize the module structure to be aligned with best practices so that GoSec will work. And then maybe somebody can do that, but mostly I don't want to be blocking people from making progress when we have very, very little time. So just
Sure.
trying to reduce the dependency. That would be my my vote on this.
All right, then let us
So
all create two issues then. So one is
yes,
to disable GoSec temporarily. So that is one thing. Other thing is to do the spike of how to make it work, reorganize those things. So two separate issues. One is a very fast and easy thing just to unblock us. And the other one is probably Rado can help us investigate further into
Yeah,
how.
and it may still happen in R1. I'm not thinking
Yes.
it. Yeah, it's just
yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So okay, let's open two issues immediately. So any other any concerns from the folks here choosing that path, especially the first one where we are suggesting to disable GoSec. At least it is a temporary thing, at least for a sprint. Any
Yeah.
any concerns from anyone? All right. Okay. I'll create an initial work with Rado.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Okay, then last item is the build pipelines. I think Tal brought this up too. Like, so I know this is a SIG3 thing, but I know so many folks from SIG3 are here. So I wanted to ask, like, what is the status there? Are there any blockers in getting that set up? Because if we want to get to that integration test point, and we can always push manually, right? We can make it happen for a manual setup, but it would be nice if we were getting builds pushed automatically to Docker. I don't. Would the plan be there to do it on tagged releases or on interim builds? What nightly? What does any has this been discussed in SIG3 at all? I guess is my question.
Not as far as my knowledge concerned, the policy. Yeah, the yes, the what is discussed is yes, we need to get this upgraded account, we need to push the images there, we need to consume the images from there. But I don't think, at least I may be wrong here, but my understanding is I don't think we discussed the policy.
Okay, so for when we start doing the end-to-end tests, then we probably need to push them there because we have multiple clusters pulling images, and so like when we do if we do a single node E2E test, you could probably run something locally, or you just use the local Docker. I don't know because we still have sub clusters, so I don't know exactly how that works.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's I guess where it's going to be really important. Tal, did you say you were working on this, or I guess I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
No, we just opened an issue, as Bala said. I think it's probably a high priority to discuss in SIG3. I think for now, a lot of people are just using their own Docker Hub accounts and for testing.
Yeah.
But we also, there's a missing piece that I need to fill in, that we're using upstream existing versions of the Free5GC operators, but we also want to build them internally.
The operators or the workloads, the functions themselves?
The workload operators, right? So we have two kinds of container images, right? Kept functions and operators.
That we're building, yeah. I was asking, yeah, but you're using the upstream Free5GC network functions themselves. You're not, are you talking about building those, or that you're just,
yeah, I'm talking about building those because this is an external, I mean, it's not critical, but we're just using something upstream that works. But we didn't create those packages. And actually we have to do a little bit of a hack because we add this extra script, wrapper script we call, which ideally just should be part of the package. But because we're not building the package, we have to do a little dance around that. So it's not critical. I mean, we can continue working as we're doing right now, but we should be managing all our own artifacts and not using upstream artifacts when we should.
I'm not sure, like we're not gonna build, Kubernetes, we're not gonna build Porch. Like I'm not sure that.
Well, because we are, yeah, we're you know, the container image, right, for say free5gc UPF. I mean, these are Docker files. We can just add them to our repository and build them. Again, it's not critical.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. But as I said, there's some awkwardness because we don't control it at all. No, you know.
Yeah, they could delete it or whatever, right? It would go away.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Or
Yeah,
include malicious code there too. We're not auditing anything that happens outside of our organization.
I think at this point, right, we're demonstrating capabilities in R1. We're not running a production.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, it's not critical. It's an open issue. It's not really critical. But I think, you know, our main issue is the kept functions because they're stored as container images. So
yeah, we need to build those and push those ourselves. Yeah, and in our operators that we're building and specializers and everything. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like then SIG3 is on top of that, or planning to be on top of it, and I think that's our agenda. Is there anything else people feel needs to be discussed amongst the larger group here, or shall we give ourselves 10 minutes back?
So, John, just one question on the other 5GC functions that Orange. Do we have a time? You told me. I think you alluded there maybe a couple of days before they can contribute. So, do we get we have a actual this thing? Can this happen this sprint?
I hope so. Piotr's on vacation through the end of the week, I think. So he may be back Friday or Monday. So it's a little tight, but there's not the packages are there. Right, so it's more. He's just going to strip out the UPF and the SMF and the APF, the AMF, because we have separate packages for those. So basically, what we said is just take the whole. But you could break all of those into separate packages, but at least for now, we're just going to take it as one big package of like this. Like there's like 10 functions or something, because they're all going to be sort of scheduled together. So that'll just be one package. Over time, if we want to, we can start to break those out if we want to make more, if there's reasons to make, I don't know enough about these network functions, like if there's reasons to split them across clusters or something like that, then we can start to break them out. So I don't think that will take him long, but you know, I haven't specifically talked to him about how long it will take. But I expect it should happen in the next, I hope that it'll happen this sprint.
Okay. He's back next week, Bala. Bala is the 5th, so on Friday he has holiday on Friday, so he's back next week.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Wim. The other thing, John, that he told that he's going to help us is obviously when we demonstrated everything was in the same cluster, right, including the UPF. So in our test bed, it will be in 2 clusters, and they're going to help us. There are some changes in the configuration there, and he'll also help us in some testing.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen this sprint, but that can happen next
sprint.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent, everybody. Well, thank you. Have a great week, and let's keep in touch on Slack. Let's make this thing happen.
Cool. Thank you so much.